I've been getting busy. I'm outside. I've been leading an example in a great way. You heard?
Yo, Jimmy.
I break that nigga 30 minutes. They don't really know who Nas is. If he, son,
Nah, but he know.
my son,
they know about
my
Nas.
son can't tell you one Nas record. You heard? Like, let's keep it a buck here.
I actually reached out to Nas to actually,
Whoa.
I'm doing my chicken head right now because I really want him to get on this record.
Like, if it was like Jim Jones, imagine putting a pen to paper to write about him. He was so nice. He was so nice about him. How did you do that?
Thus, Jim Jones is no longer merely disparaging Nas. He's even threatening to pull up now. Here's the problem though. Jim's existence was hardly acknowledged by Nas, and when he did, it was so contemptuous that Jim burst out again. This isn't your normal back and forth argument though. Jim Jones is primarily harboring resentment that Nas has long since moved on from. The Diplomat's criticism of Nas on Mixtapez in the early 2000s was the beginning of this 2-decade-old drama. It was merely lyrical punches back then. However, Nas barely reacted and didn't bite. But in an old video that recently came to light, Nas basically made fun of Jim, claiming he wasn't even worth the time. Hearing about Jim Jones right here doesn't excite me. That ought to have been the end of it, but Jim is still bitter about it years later, so it wasn't. He even made a threat to slap Nas at one point. He is now attacking anyone who disagrees. With his claims of superiority over Nas, the internet erupted once more as fans ridiculed Jim for behaving like a washed-up rapper in need of attention now that he is genuinely threatening to pull up on Nas. And this time, Jim's threats caused a significant backlash against him. They weren't just empty words.
That when we get into numbers and I gotta show you the statistics of what I've done. You heard to what other people was done. You heard, and you wanna go to the Billboard entries, pull up Nas' Billboard entries and pull up my Billboard entries.
Jim Jones is constantly talking about pulling up, but Nas isn't at all interested. Jim asserted during his most recent appearance on the Bag Fuel podcast that his remarks caused Nas to go viral once more, something he claims hasn't occurred since Ether.
Nas probably never been done for him in his life. He's never been that viral at all, ever. Ever. He's never been talked about like this ever in his life.
Has Nas reached out to you?
You did. The last time he was in some shit like this where people were comparing was when him and Jay was beating on him.
Jim went on to say that all of his contemporaries are too afraid to approach him in the booth. He proudly asserted once more that he was the greatest of that generation.
I'm at the apex of what I do, you heard? So I'm talking about currently, you heard? Currently, nobody from my era really want to get busy or go and get into the booth with me right now, currently. This is a fact, Jack, you heard? If not, they would have stood up a long time ago and holler at me.
This is where Jim began threatening people. He produced money and urged Nas or anybody else to make a face-to-face settlement.
The real person. Right now. And it ain't a money thing, but this is here, you heard? If you want to get busy, is there money on the line? Any one of y'all from my era, I care about right now. I've been getting...
You see though, nobody is biting. Jim is only truly upset about how ridiculous this circus appears. Now, in case you missed the beginning of this, Jim's discussion on the Joe and Jada podcast earlier this month about how his opinion of Nas altered after he entered the rap industry caused a stir. Jim retaliated when Fat Joe questioned him about a child on Instagram who was comparing him to Nas, stating that people should look at his Billboard statistics to see why he consistently chooses himself over everyone else, regardless of who they are comparing him to.
Saw a clip on Instagram where a young kid was comparing you to Nas and saying that you got big hits. Yo, he looked to you. He learned how to wear the BB Simon belt from you. He got his swag. Like, how crazy is that? Because in my era, you know what I'm saying? Nas is like a god.
In my
right?
in my era too. I mean,
So to
well,
be compared,
yeah. Let me
that young kid out.
he was young and we loved that he loved Jim Jones. I want you to break it down.
Let's not get into that where we get into numbers and I gotta show you the statistics of what I've done. You heard to what other people was done. You heard them. You want to go to the Billboard entries, pull up Nas Billboard entries, then pull up my Billboard entries.
Listen, we can't compare the two. What I'm trying to tell you is
I want to go there.
Hold on.
I want to go down the line now because now we going down the line. He's a rapper and I'm a rapper.
Listen,
no. Let's go statistically.
It feels great.
No, but I want to go statistically because when people be like,
I feel the same way. We all feel the same way.
And forget about the numbers. There's nothing that could. There's never is me. When you put me up against anybody, I'm taking me every time. Every time.
Okay,
every
but let
time.
me
In all categories.
say something though, Jim.
In every category, I get.
However, that Billboard flex was completely incorrect. Additionally, Billboard actually spent time verifying Jim's information. Jim has only had 2 Hot 100 hits and 1 Top 10 as a solo artist. Regarding Nas, he has 2 Top 10s and 27 entries on the Hot 100. In terms of albums, Jim's had 3 Billboard 200 entries, but Nas has 27 charting albums, 16 Top 10s, and 6 number 8 South. Jim was not only embarrassed by this error, but it also undermined his entire claim to be the greatest. Jim refused to back down though, even after losing his Billboard brag. On Nightcap with Shannon Sharpe and Chad Johnson, the drama intensified once more. Jim initially credited Nas with having Gangnuli influence, but he later questioned how long it actually lasted. It all began when Jim claimed to be a better rapper than Nas, and Shannon inquired as to whether he was sober. Jim retaliated sharply. At that point, claiming he was not only superior to the renowned Nas, but also more significant.
You smoke, right?
Yeah,
Were you smoking when you said you better than Nas?
I might have been a little bit. Well, as far as let's get this right. I'm way more influential than Nas, and I don't care what nobody say. I know I made a little boo-boo when we talk about the sales and all this type of shit. I don't feel like getting into that rhetoric about where I started and where he started.
Well, you said that.
But listen, Nas was nice when I was in high school. When I was in 10th grade, Nas came out. Nas was dope. We appreciated him. He had a little bit run. But Nas always came up second to Jay and DMX and all these other people. Like,
Ain't no shame in that. There's a lot of more folks came up second to Tom Brady.
He never had that type of influence on us, except for his first album. I already told you, I used to want to dress like Nas because he had a lot of fresh clothes that the hustlers used to wear. We used to see him on TV. He had one of the illest albums of all time. And then in high school when he had the barbecue and shit like that. So I'm a real fan of Nas, but he kind of lost me after the movie Belly and shit like that. Like, I don't.
Man, go ahead on with that, Jim.
I'm trying to tell you, I'm being honest. You ask me, I'm being a fan. I'm telling you, the movie Belly was fire, but after that, it kind of lost me. I think we was way too much into the game.
Jim then mentioned Dipset's brief spat with Nas in the early 2000s, stating, "We're the ones that went wild on them boys," alluding to their 2003 song. I mean, IT.
You never heard of a Kofi list?
Yeah.
Yo, go back into your history and find out what happened between us and him. You dig? And I'm not trying to repeat history, but don't play with us when it comes to that, bro. We already went wild on them boys. You heard? We the ones that went wild on them boys. You heard?
In a moment, we will go into that past. But first, take a look at Shannon's rebuttal that Nas is better than Jim lyrically.
I'm put it to you like this, Jim. Hey, bro, you been in this thing, but lyrically, I'm gonna keep it a stack with you.
Yeah,
Y'all
but look
ain't
how
happy
you
with
dress.
Nas.
Look how you dress. You don't even be in the same places I be in. And the
But
things that we, listen,
I can be in the church house. You can't F Nas lyrics. I don't know who told you that. Now look, I know you on that good stuff, but you not saying.
Jim, however, refused to back down and challenged Nas to meet him in the booth if he was serious about proving it.
40 and 50-year-olds in their panties because I said I'm better than
It don't
Nas.
matter.
Look at you. Look at you.
Nobody from Dipset gonna take you over Nas. Nobody from the Diplomats but you.
I got a question.
Stick up for itself and meet me in a booth or something if we want to do something historical.
Nas say he don't do that no more. Nas say he don't do that.
Because he got $100 million. He's a very wealthy man. You heard he's a very smart businessman. He got a couple business licks.
Hold on.
I'm rapping at a high level. You better check my stats, bro. I will run circles around Nas rapping right. I will run circles around Nas rapping right now. Right now, I will run Saturn around Nas right now rapping. Everybody.
Jim then made an effort to calm things down by telling Shannon he wasn't angry. However, when Jim asked Shannon to see him in the gym and claimed that Shannon and Oo had only booked him to increase their ratings, emotions erupted once more.
Get this right. I'm not mad. It's about the sportsmanship of the game. People know I'm a very aggressive person, and I seem to get misconstrued when I'm talking my shit. I'm just talking my shit, you heard? Let me talk my shit because I am on the field. If anybody got a problem with that, they can meet me on the field. That is the booth. Anybody from that era. I can sing more Nas records than you right now, so you are capping. You are capping. That's what you're doing.
First of all, bro,
you are capping. I'm a bigger Nas fan than you are. You are capping.
First of all,
I'm
57. I don't be singing no rap. I don't be singing no rap.
You see what I'm saying, Ocho? He don't even know about rap. He just doing this for the views to get Jim Jones on there to get him hot. I understand.
At this point, Jim went into a full-fledged public outburst, with admirers tearing him apart on the internet. Shannon retaliated, essentially stating that Jim is far more in need of their program than they are of him.
You don't know Nas.
You better check the podcast space. Now you better talk.
Sing 16.
Hey, this is the biggest podcast you ever been on.
Name one Nas record.
This is the biggest podcast you ever been on. You know the podcast you been on bigger than this one.
Hold on. We off topic. Hold on.
This is what I do. You see
Name a podcast you been on bigger than this one. When you get big, you get invited to Club Shay Shay.
This is what I do.
Nas get invited to Club Shay Shay. Jadakiss get invited to Club Shay Shay. You not on that level yet, bro.
It's for little young.
Hello.
Chill out.
We off topic.
With me, bro. Chill out.
We off topic.
You're dealing with the wrong one, bro.
Right here, bro.
I don't care nothing about nothing that's what you got to say, bro. You might as well take me
Hello.
off this shit, bro.
We here. You can't out talk me.
Alone, bro.
You might can out rap me, but you can't out talk me.
Don't nobody want to go to Club Shay Shay. Nobody want to buy no VIP tickets to that shit. Nobody rushing to go to that shit.
Biggest podcast you ever been on.
Club Shay Shay.
Hey,
you got a good podcast.
But Jim wasn't finished, you know. Later, he posted on Instagram and once more pushed Shannon to work out non-stop. Someone tell Shannon Sharp, don't start ducking this challenge now. He captioned a video he uploaded of himself doing it. My sneakers are tied, so you're either going to walk what you talk about or talk like a podcast host. You have already put me to the test in front of everyone. Champ, you might as well get the job done. Ooinko. I don't want to do it in public, he stated. Let's do it in private tell. I am aware that his athletic reputation is at stake. Funny. We don't back down from a challenge as long as you are the witness. Where I come from, size doesn't matter. Launch it. To all Goliaths, Little David. Fans bombarded Jim's post with comments like, he got wheelchair legs, and called him a cornball for pleading for attention at darn near 50. As you might expect, Jim's desperate gym flex backfired miserably. Regarding NS, he did ultimately reply in a way. Here are some reasons why it would be inaccurate to term this a beef before we get there. Jim Jones is mostly harboring a biased resentment. Thus, the entire crisis began in 2003 when Cameron and the Diplomats, particularly Jim Jones, frequently made fun of Nas in radio freestyles and mixtapes. In a tape that has since surfaced, Nas openly dismissed Jim in 2005, essentially stating that because no one is looking for Jim, he isn't even worth a quarrel. Additionally, his bars never caused anyone to feel uneasy.
Like Jim Jones, imagine putting a pen to paper to write about him. He was so nice about him. How did you do that? What's the first sentence? What the fuck do you write about him? I'm not anxious to hear the Jim Jones diss record. Like, I'm like, yo. The niggas that used to have a nigga a little nervous was like B.I.G., Pop, right? Even Cannabis, like Eminem. The niggas used to have you like, if we go at it, dog, we gotta go hard. You know what I'm saying? But these niggas like a Jim Jones, like, I respect you getting your money. You're like, exactly, right?
But see why you not respecting his lyrical game right now.
I respect his hustle. I respect his hustle. That's fine.
A year or so later, Nas released the album Hip Hop Is Dead, which caused a number of his contemporaries to take offense. Jim Jones, however, took it more personally than anyone else and even threatened to slap Nas. "Nas, I like Nas' new song," Jim stated in an interview with, "Even though I appreciate his new song, which is Where My Gangsters Are, I will still slap the holy living out of him." That's a little slick. He has a few bars there, but other than that, I enjoy music, so I can never, but if I had to, I would hit him in the mouth. Jim continued to press, but Nas ignored him and stayed away after this. In an interview in October 2008, Jim stated, Nas, when it comes to Nas, I don't care. He's a rapper who recently lost his edge." Jim brazenly asserted that Nas was never on his level during a heated altercation with Dame Dash and Nas in a Ferrari store, which he also shared with Rap City. "Dame saw him and was speaking to him," Jim added. "I was giggling while leaning back. On a couch, he was unsure about what to do. I was staring at him intently. 'You know, Jim,' Dame said, and he began to stutter. The Dame is simply exhausted. He isn't considering any of that pointless stuff. Not me either. Nas was never really on my level, for the most part. Never. The most absurd thing, though, is that Jim insisted he didn't give a damn about the pointless drama. Despite this, he's the one who is angry and hurling sly jabs at Nas, who completely disregarded him. Thus, there were no public back and forths, and the beef cooled off after 2008. Jim genuinely began to recognize the history of Nas, and he even acknowledged that he made an effort to work with them. But Nas didn't even bother to answer.
Nas to actually,
Whoa!
I'm doing my shit right now because I really want him to get on this record. Nah, but we still got a bunch of mutual friends and shit like that. I actually reached out to Nas. I actually sent him the record. I got a response from him, not personally, but through the friends that gave him my number. I was told, like, he said he wants to holler at me and shit like that he liked the record. That was what I was told.
And get this, Jim freely said that Nas has always been a big influence and one of his favorite rappers. Jim publicly pleaded for a single and referred to him as the greatest of all time, despite Nas rejecting his desire for a collaboration.
As Dip said, whatever, before Dip said, just want to put that on the record, like Nas was absolutely one of my favorite rappers of all time. From when he did the barbecue when we was in high school, walking through the always we felt like he was him and like we was him. And, you know, once you get into the pros, you know what it is, and you're in the same team. But I would love to do a record with him, as him being one of my favorites of all time. I think that's bucket list material for me. So, you know, we'll see what happens.
But in the present, Jim has completely changed, going from disparaging Nas and pleading for a feature to downplaying his legacy and behaving as if he doesn't even know him. It is therefore not surprising that people are making fun of Jim and claiming that his worst enemy must be the person who gave him enough confidence to believe he could outstrip Nas. Nas, however, remains above everything. He's inducted into the Hall of Fame. No evidence is required. Jim, that 40-year-old player. However, just when Jim believed he was winning, Nas gave him a nuanced yet vicious reply that made Jim appear even more inferior. Some fans believe that, by making it obvious that he's far above this feud and that it's not even on his radar, Nas was making a subtle swipe at Jim, shared a picture of himself dining with LeBron, Draymond Green, and several other prosperous black CEOs on Instagram. On June 21st, and Jim received a straightforward message: "We can't have you sit with us." Additionally, supporters are remarking, this was the best possible non-response to all the yapping Jim has been doing lately, in the comment section of Nas's post. "This is how you silence a one-hit wonder," was one of the comments left by fans. And sometimes it's better to say nothing than something. Furthermore, it is obvious that anyone who believes Nas would resort to responding to Jim is unfamiliar with Nas. Did we overlook the fact that he actually owns a bar? I hardly ever listen to men who have never walked in my shoes. A caterpillar is incapable of understanding what an eagle imagines.